All right, we are live. Good afternoon, everyone, on the live show, on the replay. It is Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. This will be the second to last show for a couple weeks. I'm going to be actually out of the country, getting married, getting tan, getting all that good stuff, getting fat, probably.
Making us jealous. All
Trying
that
to
good
make you
stuff.
guys jealous. Yeah, I'll be gone for a couple weeks in the Philippines. So um I don't know if we're gonna if you're gonna go on solo, Brad. More than happy to set that up for you, or if we're just gonna wait a couple weeks and just do a little hiatus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll just figure that out as we go. So anyway, how's your
Yeah,
week?
we can talk about it. It's going good. Yeah, we're I'm getting to the God, man, it's like feels like July just started, but I'm already looking into, we always look ahead a couple of months. So I'm kind of getting in that mode. I've got an interesting thing happen with a buyer client today.
Uh-huh.
Their lender requested that we move the closing sooner.
Oh,
So I'm
lender.
like, oh, good. Well, yeah. I'm like, all right. Well, this guy's really doing his job. So this the client came to me. He was already pre-approved, so he had a lender. It doesn't always work that way, but yeah, the lender was like, hey, we're wrapping this thing up. Y'all want to close sooner? And
Oh, I gotcha.
so they wanted. So I'm like, we're they want to close like 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we're like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's so I went to work doing my negotiations to we had repairs inspections this week. So I told my client, I said, this is where when people ask, should I use an agent? This is where we earn our money. It's negotiating not just the contract, but everything after that. We did inspections, and the roof inspector said that the remaining age lifespan of the roof was 0 to 1 years. so,
0 to 1 years. Oh yeah, that needs to be replaced real quick.
yeah, so I'm like, all right, well, we asked for 5,000 in closing cost and a home warranty, and now I'm going to go back and ask for a new roof. But we got it to work out, so that was exciting. But that's where we as agents really earn our money, and that's where the cream rises to the top, is people being able to, because I told the other agent, part of it's like comforting them, letting them know that, look, we're 2 weeks out. We're really close. Let's make this happen. So how was your week? What's your week? I mean, you're probably somewhat distracted trying to prepare for the trip and still kind of maintain things.
I have a lot going on. I'll just be 100% blunt with you. I'm all over the place. I've lost sleep. I've I've been trying to keep my weight down. Um so I've been like swimming like 60 laps a day for the past like 2 to 3 weeks, and calorie intake, all that stuff. And I've lost, actually, ever since I started doing this, I've lost about 11 pounds, which is pretty nice. I went down a pant size, which is kind of cool.
Wow. I can kind of tell in your face, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. um, but yeah, my dad's coming back from the Philippines for a few months, and the biggest stress I have right now is just getting the house ready for him to when he gets back. He'll be here for a few months and then he'll fly back to the Philippines. And um, we redid the bathroom in our house, but we're not done with the tiling part, which is supposedly the easiest thing. I highly disagree with that. I think it has to do with the tile that we chose. Like I can't measure worth a damn. I can't cut worth a damn. All this stuff. So I ended up having to buy brand new tile to redo one of the walls. But now I've got the hang of it. If I ever do tiling again, which I doubt I'll do, I think I have a little bit more experience on like what to expect and like what to watch out for. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place, to be honest, man.
So that's why they say measure twice, cut once. Is that where that comes from? Like,
it probably, I didn't take into account that, like, when you're, so I've updated, like, on our Instagram, I put some like examples of like the progress of the
yeah,
shower. And one thing I didn't really take into account is So when you're cutting, it's better to have like one whole piece versus like a bunch of different ones, but it's just not possible in most cases. So you end up having, at least two, if not three pieces, depending on how you measure. And I mean, it's the first time I've ever done this, so it's YouTube University for me, right? So what ended up happening was I I measured like the uh the tile correctly on one side, but I didn't take into account that there's certain parts of the wall that kind of come out a little bit because
Mm.
of the mud or whatever. And so as you go up along the wall, it's like 33 inches this way, and then 32 and an eighth, and 32 and 7/8, that kind of thing. So it kind of throws everything off. But that 1/8 is just enough to where I need to like either I gotta hack off of the whole thing, or like I don't know, just a lot of DIY is definitely not easy, but I feel like it'll look better by just being more patient with everything. But like, yeah, like you said, I get this house ready. I gotta get like there's communication back and forth with family and our wedding coordinator in the Philippines, and that's a little different. Just because there's different times and all that. My dad potentially has pneumonia. I'm not sure. That was kind of a scare yesterday. He seems okay. So I kind of expected it, but yeah, I'm a little all over the place, man,
Well,
to be
I
honest.
mean, not to mention this is the second time y'all are getting married, so you're
Mhm.
like you're doing this twice on top of everything. So this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
and
I
I'm
mean,
assuming the first one was probably a little easier than trying to coordinate. What's up, Brian LCS? How are you doing, man? Appreciate you swinging by.
yeah.
Good to see you, man.
I mean, definitely the first wedding was like it was tacos and churros and tequila, and um, it was really quick. The ceremony was super quick. This one, it's like it's very Catholic, right? So there's three priests. There's a whole entourage of godparents and secondary sponsors, and there's a coin bearer. There's a Bible bearer. There's a person that carries a damn cross.
Wait,
There's
coin bearer? What is
So in Spanish tradition, the Filipinos got this from the Spanish people. We'll get into the show in a little bit. I don't want to bore you guys with
well,
boring
this
Catholic
is
stuff.
intriguing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is interesting.
So there's 12
Coming from the South, it's like that's when you said that it kind of jumped out at me like, oh,
Oh,
a coin bearer. We
y'all
don't
don't
we
do that?
no 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 we do a ring bearer, and
Yeah.
then most of the time, like the last two weddings I was in, uh we were backstage drinking in the church while we were like just keeping loose. So that was yeah, that was it's just different it's cool to hear like different traditions and stuff.
Yeah, so legitimate or a coin bearer it was passed down from it's Spanish tradition passed down to Filipinos, and actually it's in Mexico as well. So they call it something different, but there's 12 coins, and I don't know exactly what the 12 coins represent, but it's supposed to represent like basically prosperity throughout the marriage, and then like obviously like richness, right? In Filipino tradition, the man works and then gives the money to the wife, and then she just like it's the women are always the head of the household in the Philippines. So they're bossy, like they're very, because they have to run the house, right? And it's there's like a superstition, if the man holds the coins and hands them to his wife and she fumbles the coins, so there's 13, there's 12 of them, right? They're gonna have bad financial problems.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So my mom, actually my grandmother, I want to say, or maybe my great grandmother, she actually has one that's all like kind of the coins are all together. So it's almost impossible for this handoff to drop. And so there's this little like Catholic coin thing that we've had like for like 80 years. It's been my family for like ever. And so it's kind of an heirloom in a way for my mom's side. And she's no longer with us. So it's kind of special to me to have that, here.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
and the tradition, all that. So yeah, man. So it's 95 degrees and about 100% humidity. And the thing with Catholic weddings, especially Filipino, is there's so many people involved in the wedding, so the entourage is just gonna be, like, forever. And on top of that, it just adds time. Um, you know how usually, like, in normal processions, like, the, the what is it? The couples, like, they walk together, or, like, the mom will walk with her dad together.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there's, like, it's called, like, the walk of the bride. I don't know exactly the term or whatever, but typically, the whoever's escorting Isela, my wife, she will the escort will walk halfway to the middle of the aisle, and then she'll turn, and then everyone will rise. So she has her own, like, kind of solo walk, and then at the in the middle they will meet, and then she'll hand off Isela or whatever. So
Wow.
there's a lot of traditions I wasn't aware of until like 2 weeks ago, and I just keep thinking, oh my god, there's gonna be so many people at this wedding, and then I'm gonna be
I know.
sweating like balls and like all this stuff, man. It's gonna
Yeah,
be
Brian. Yeah, I know, Brian. That's yeah, no pressure at all. That's
yeah.
no problem.
So
Well, that's so. I guess it's not cheating if you have the coins where you can't possibly fumble them. It's. I would be
yeah,
worried, dude. I'd have to do like a basketball player, walk up and like powder,
I
powder my
know
hands
it's gonna be so
perfectly.
hot too. I know, man. It's it'll be great though. I mean, I thought that initially, to be honest, like that the initial wedding would have been like, oh, it's that kind of that excitement is going to be like gone or whatever. But I really don't feel that way. I'm actually more. I feel more excited for this one, or I don't say I feel more excited. I'm still there's that anticipation of like, oh, we're not really married yet. Like I don't even
Yeah,
call
yeah,
her
yeah.
like my wife yet because it's not Catholic. I'm not very religious anymore. It's more tradition, but no, we're really excited though. Hopefully it all goes to plan and we have a good time and I come back not sunburnt, but
Well, I
yeah,
can't
fingers
wait to
crossed.
watch the live stream of the wedding. I mean,
Yeah. We'll put the Brad pillow with the camera right in front, next to the priest.
perfect,
Yeah.
perfect.
So anyway, well, we got
Well, see,
four live, so go ahead,
oh,
go ahead.
awesome. I was going to say 12 minutes in, and look at you can't walk away from today's show and say you didn't learn something.
Yeah, I and
'Cause
I
most
think
people,
I think this is gonna be a fun show. Brad, I got or we kind of came up with the idea to do something a little more, audience oriented, and I wanted to do something a little more fun for perhaps the younger kids that are uh my wife's nephew, I guess you'd call him. He's going to be a freshman in college next year, and he's very quiet. And I don't know if he's watching right now, but I did send him the link. So Bryden, if you're watching, comment in the comments. But this is kind of for you, as far as my portion is. He wanted to know about video game stocks, and so we kind of were like just generally talking about it. I didn't really have a lot of things to say or really know what to say about them, but hopefully he gets something out of this. And another audience kind of request was to do Airbnb, which I was like, oh man, that's Brad's alley 100%. So I'm really excited. Actually, I didn't read. I never do read what you put. I just kind of browse through it. I'm like, oh, cool. But I saw that you had a lot of points to see. Was it interesting for you to like go through kind of the
yeah,
info?
absolutely. And I appreciate your trust in my ability to put the slides together and make something interesting. You don't check behind me. That's an insane amount of trust. I appreciate that. That's
No, no, man. I
it.
mean, I was like, I'm not even going to look into the numbers of Airbnb financially. Like, I want to know, like, on the street. You know what I mean? I think,
It Yeah, it's intriguing. It's really intriguing. I've got we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why uh and a lot of this is like I'm starting one of the cool things for me because this is what is this the 10th show? I mean, are we on number 10 now?
that's a great
I think we're
question.
somewhere around 10. But one of the things that I'm seeing the trend is that there's a common theme, even though we're talking about such different content each week. There's a common theme, and we'll see that common theme crop up again tonight. So I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I dove into it and really was really had a good time researching it. So yeah, I'm looking forward
Cool.
to it. And
All
your
right.
segment, I mean, I've started following stocks on my phone And every once in a while, I'll add, like, you'll mention one and I'll add it just to kind of track it. So
Sure.
between your segment here and what you do daily, your daily updates, it's been good, man. I'm glad we did this. This has been very informative for me too. So we don't always claim to have all the answers, but so this has been it's been interesting to sit back. And then the chat, of course, man. We love our guys in the chat.
Definitely.
Always dropping knowledge and got some great questions and insight to go along with it. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and honestly, because the chat, you kind of run out of like ideas on what to talk about. I want to say the chat was very helpful in kind of giving us an idea of what to talk about today. And what are we talking about today? Well, Brad, we're talking about Airbnb, and we're gonna end the dessert. The Airbnb is gonna kind of be the dessert of our show today. Video game stocks, credit tip of the day, and then kind of our, I think probably an ongoing thing, just kind of how much will XYZ amount get you in the areas that we live and whatnot. So, um, oh shoot,
So you
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say you had, I saw your message late about the price point for the house, but I actually chose the house that I chose was for you, and you'll see why
Okay.
once we get to that point. So
Cool. Well, I'm excited. I always like to see the comparisons between different areas, and sometimes, or all the time, envy kind of the different architecture on the east, in South Carolina as well. So I think my EA Sports, or my Electronic Arts logo, was erased on accident, so I apologize. But EA, Electronic Arts, is kind of like the gold standard for video game companies. The video game companies I'm highlighting today, I wanted to really get specific onto just like a company that only does video games, but there's a couple in here that do kind of delve into other segments of profit making or whatnot. But Electronic Arts is kind of, I would say, like the gold standard of video game companies. I think way back they were known for making The Sims, and then when Madden football blew up, like every sports game, like EA was just coming out with stuff. And then
soccer,
lately,
hockey, basketball. I mean, I played
everything,
all the sports.
FIFA,
Yeah.
right? Um, I haven't bought a Madden game in a long time, just because it just seems like the same thing over and over every year. But that was kind of what EA's been known for. Um, I've always thought of them as a company that would be acquired by like a big, like, content hungry company, like an Apple, for example, or a Microsoft, or even maybe an Amazon. I don't know. I don't know if the market cap is too big for one of those companies to acquire Electronic Arts, but you never know. And it would definitely be a game changer for technology, I would think. And we in other podcasts I'm part of, they talk about like, you know, um NFTs, or that type of stuff. And I feel like with video games, kind of the origin of using credits, or some type of like coin, kind of comes from the credits that gamers buy out of video games, like that come from Electronic Arts. Um, are you a big gamer, or were back in the day? And then if you were, did you ever buy like supplemental like DLCs to like supplement the game that you enjoy?
I used to, but I mean, we're talking like the early to mid 90s is when I played. Dude, we're talking like Sega Genesis days, like old school, like the hockey where you could make their heads bleed when you checked them, when you like checked
Oh,
them and stuff.
yeah,
So, but that was all EA stuff. I mean, EA
right.
Sports is in the game, and that was like, I mean, that was the intro on it's just ingrained in your head. So, do they still have all those properties all these years later? Are they still doing Madden?
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do still do Madden, for sure. They do. They do FIFA. I mean, FIFA I think is a big property for them internationally, of course. Um, and I was trying to figure out like what was the specific game that really like because the big moneymaker right now is like get as many users into XYZ game, you know, do it for free and then hope that they either do subscription or they buy like skins or something to supplement their game or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, they still do like those, like Madden comes out every year. They still have licensing. I just think it's so expensive, like to have like the monopoly on the NFL. How much do you have to pay electronic or the NFL to get those rights or whatever? It's probably quite a bit, but
And they've always, I mean, if they've been doing it that long, they've always had it. That's pretty nuts.
and just some quick financials, real quick. So I think last year, 2022, like anything like hobby or content related, like had amazing years last year, but so they're down quite a bit. There's not a lot of growth the past year, but this is good info for an established company. 258% increase year over year in net change in cash. So I think what it tells me again, and I'm gonna hit this forever. If you have a company that has like good cash, like if they're really hitting on like increasing their cash and whatnot, um, that's good, especially in times like these. Um, I didn't look at all the cash in a lot of these companies, but just something that I thought with Electronic Arts would be something to look into because it's an established, well-positioned company, and it's a leader, if you will. So, um, and I know you mentioned Sega. I was a Nintendo kid growing up. Were you a Sega kid growing up?
Well, once I got to the sports games, that was kind of a note. Like
Oh,
you
right, right,
almost
right.
had to make that transition. So I God, I even had a buddy who had a Dreamcast,
Oh, I
and
love
you talk about being ahead of its time, man. That
be-
was
best system. I will die on a hill. That was the best system that never made it. I I love that system. I would go
like
back and play the old sports games on that system
I,
too.
I expect you to post on Instagram and show what a sealed Dreamcast is selling for now. I want to see that in the next few days. That's you get this stuff in your head, and a couple of days later, usually you'll run a search on eBay and see what they're selling for. So
Oh man, yeah, no, 100%. Like I've actually looked in the past just for fun, for my own collection, and they're few and far between. I just think because people like it was only around for such a short period of time, and then like Dreamcast, that was the last system on Sega. It'd be cool to have a sealed or like complete in box like console, and they go for
yeah.
pretty good money like secondary market, but
Hmm.
But we're not talking about Sega, unfortunately. Talking about Nintendo. So Nintendo obviously is a Japanese-based company. So this is the first um, stock, I guess you can mention that is a foreign stock that even though you live in the US, you can still buy it via ADR. Forgot the exact ADR stands for American Depository Receipt. So basically what that means is you're buying Nintendo on an American exchange, whether it be NYSE or just whatever your app it is, I guess at this point. And it's not the actual stock that is part of Nintendo. It's the American. It's basically it's like buying the domestic version of Nintendo, but it's not the actual like original version of that. Different brokerages will have a certain amount of shares available to buy in foreign companies. It's just called an ADR. They have it's different symbols or have you. So like I don't know if you're curious about buying Nintendo, but if you were, I'd probably just like email like your advisor or email customer service at like, an E-Trade um or what other engine you use, TradeStation, all that good stuff. What's Robinhood? And just ask them, "Hey, I want to buy a couple shares of Nintendo. How do I do that via ADR?" But it's what the financials of this company, it's near 52-week highs. It's around $11 a share, so it's pretty inexpensive, quote unquote. But I feel like with with the onset of possibly a new system coming out in the next 2 to 3 years, it looks like they're burning cash. And so what that tells me is it may not be a good idea to get into Nintendo right now because one, they're burning cash, and two, I feel like Nintendo really hasn't honed in on the DLC, um, kind of not just making money from the game, but additions onto the game at this point. So I don't know. That's just kind of my opinion about it right now. But have you ever thought about buying stock in Nintendo or a foreign company in general?
No, but that's interesting that that you have to go that route, and also interesting that it's that cheap. Like I would have never have guessed that it was that cheap.
Yeah, and that's the thing with ADRs. They're kind of a misconception of like the actual value of the company because Nintendo's a multi-billion-dollar company. They have like their main American office is actually here in Redmond, and yeah, I mean it's always busy, but Nintendo always puts out such high quality stuff. I think the big thing with Nintendo is like they have the licensing of the best, I would say the best video game properties like of all time. Um, so that they really have that going for them, and they're like kind of like Apple, where they own everything. They own the hardware, they own the software, they own the IP. So yeah, it is kind of odd they're not worth more. I would say like kids in general, they want a Nintendo more than a PS5, in my opinion. It just hits that generation, and I actually, well, it's over there, but I play my Switch every day. I love it. It's a great, good quality, great system. Um, so anyway, and Activision. So this has actually been making news throughout legal in Washington and Wall Street, obviously. Microsoft has acquired Activision, and just recently this week, the news came out that the Justice Department is going to approve the transaction. FTC is cool with it. It's a multi-billion-dollar transaction here. I don't know if anyone wants to know, but Activision news.
I'm intrigued when you start talking about this stuff. I'm intrigued about trying to figure out what they're thinking. Like what's the thinking on
Acquiring them?
each one of these? Yeah, like what's their end game? Is what are they trying to get at? So when you say Nintendo's burning cash,
Oh, I
like
see.
what does that mean? And Microsoft's buying this, so somebody's got an idea. So that's really intriguing to me.
Yeah, so like with Nintendo, my assumption that they're burning cash is that they're burning cash to research and development, right? So it's okay for them to not really make profit if they're leaning that way. Now, if they're not, and the quarters are going to tell that, or announcements throughout, whatever, then there's something else that's going on, which is odd because every single time they have like a new Zelda game, it sells out initially. I don't know, and it could be cost of like wages, I don't know, but just the when it comes to what I was talking about in Nintendo, it was like quarter over quarter they were burning cash. I couldn't figure out why, and then I was like, oh shoot, the last system came out like 4 or 5 years ago with the Switch. Makes sense, right? So because like it's every 5 to 7 years that the new system comes out, something like that. I'm not really sure, but um and technology is like really like, I mean, we're talking about AI, so I'm going on a tangent here real quick, but AI is coming up. Nvidia with their processors, they're so it's like Nintendo's always funny because they're always on that cusp of like they want to be the best technology, but they don't really need to be because like it's cartoony looking characters, and the gameplay's so good anyway. It doesn't really matter, but at the same time, you still don't want to look like 8-bit. You know what I mean? So
Right.
just something to look out for. And I want to use that as an idea for like when you're looking at like a company. Oh shoot, they're burning cash. I'm not going to invest in it. That's not necessarily always a bad thing. They're reinvesting it into the company, possibly. You just have to be wary. You just have to be aware of what's going on with the company. Oh, why are they burning cash? Is it because like, but their profits up this much? Are they just reinvesting it back in the company? Probably. Oh, they had record net income, but they had record negative cash. What's up with that? Probably reinvested in the company again. So, and good companies are going to sell that in a good way. So, but this is what is really what really moves the needle when you're talking about video game exclusive companies is Activision got paid 68.7 billion by Microsoft. So that's almost three figures. I mean, you're past 50 billion, right? So Activision ended at $90 a share. Activision employees are now Microsoft employees, evidently. But this is really good news for the company as a whole, unless you didn't want to get acquired. But it tells me two things. One, Microsoft's valuing this company at 100 billion is my assumption in the next 3 to 5 years, right? You don't pay 68.7 billion for a company thinking that, especially in this economy, that's another crazy thing, right? So everyone, this is kind of a general statement for people who care to listen. Everyone is waiting for the doomsday clock to strike midnight, right? And for real estate to crash. Oh, like employment and all that stuff. And I'll kind of get this at the end of my segment. You don't have deals worth 68.7 billion by a major company during a recession. It just doesn't happen. You may have it during a $5 trillion infusion into the money market, but you don't have it during a recession. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen. You get like bankruptcies during a recession, you get failures, but you don't have a $68.7 billion acquisition by Microsoft for a company that makes video games. It just doesn't work that way. I'll stand firm on that, you know. But this is a big deal. It's a big deal for Microsoft because they're really and to me, they really want to, you know, kind of push the envelope that we're not just an AI company, Windows, what have you. We're also really focusing on the Xbox, and we want to be part of your living room, essentially, right? And you know, Activision. Let's see what they own.
Well, the FTC did not want. They did everything they could to shut this down. It looks
Yeah,
like.
I mean, they were really want to make sure, you know, this was a good, you know, I mean, I don't know. This is like not politically based at all whatsoever. I mean, I feel like it's like Microsoft just has lobbyists in Washington that say, well, you know, if this senator approves it, then maybe we'll fund their next campaign. You know, it's money talks, right?
That's
And
that's how everything gets done in Washington. It seems like.
exactly. I don't care what party you're part of. I mean, this has nothing to do with right, left, or middle. You know, this is just money. But I mean, look at these titles: Call of Duty, Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk.
Tony Hawk's pretty cool, but the Call of Duty series, I mean, that every year, it's like not only does it sell out really well, those DLC, monthly subscriptions, play online. It's a very addictive game. I don't play it, but yeah, it's just one of those successful games that Microsoft's going to get every single dollar that you're putting into your little shooter. You know, so.
That's my oldest nephew likes Call of Duty a lot. Him and all his buddies played it for hours and hours. And was it on both Xbox and PlayStation?
Yeah, I mean, like, because Activision doesn't care what system it's on, right? And I don't think, and here's another thing, like, I don't think Microsoft's gonna be like, nah, we're gonna take it off PlayStation or Nintendo. It's probably not a Nintendo or a computer or whatever. They're gonna let everyone play because they want
Oh yeah,
every single one,
don't
you
limit
know?
it,
Yeah,
and probably, you know, under the table, you know, it's like a jab to PlayStation, like, hey, yeah, we're appreciate those dollars that we're getting off of your system too. You know,
right,
people doing add-ons and all that stuff.
right, exactly. So, you know, it's an oligopoly of stuff. It's just how much exposure can we get to what games people are playing for 8 to 10 hours a day, that kind of thing. So, um, my last three stocks I'm talking about today, and we got 7 live. Thanks everyone for coming through. I feel like this is kind of a fun topics we got today, and let everybody know about our show. click that like button and subscribe, all that good stuff. We're almost at 40 subscribers, so that's pretty cool. I'm pretty excited for that. So
Getting close, yeah. Appreciate you guys.
Um, these next three, I'm very negative on these three. Sony has its own problems, but Ubisoft, I actually learned about this company from Brighton, who I'm actually doing the show for a little bit. Their main video game is Assassin's Creed. I don't know if you know of that game, Brad, but I know a little bit about it. There was a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, right? That's really the only like marquee name that this company has. As far as I know, if anyone in the chat knows any more about Ubisoft, please chat away, because I couldn't find anything really, but I didn't really do a deep dive. Revenues are down across the board. This company's not doing very well as far as financials are concerned. I don't know if it's because the lack of games that they put out, or just the people aren't digging the games as much. But this is a French company, so they're based in France, and they've been around for a very long time. I don't know if this is an acquisition type of company to be bought out, but seems like they're having some financial issues and creativity issues, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. It's kind of like, I feel like it's like you have like, when we read comic books, right? It's, you have a great run on series one, the first series of last year, but the second, third, fourth series haven't really hit very well. I feel that's kind of what Ubisoft's issues are. But
Well, to
yeah,
get bought, you got to have a product that people want.
just
You know,
know,
I
right?
mean, it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
otherwise you're. I mean, I wonder if well, there's a lot of competition for people's attention, and only so many hours in the day. So a kid wants to play. Hey, you can play Assassin's Creed, or you can play
Call of
Call of
Duty.
Duty,
Yeah,
or Halo, or whatever, whatever it is,
yeah,
or just Mario stuff. I mean, there's 24 hours in a day and a lot of competition for that downtime.
exactly. Yeah, so they're not doing so well. My next company, Sony. A reason I don't like this as far as the video game segment of Sony is concerned. I always feel that Sony, and this is like ever since I was a kid, like they do really good marketing, and they sell their products really well, like market it per se, right? But the quality of the actual hardware that they sell is just so bad. And whereas like it's gotten to the point where like I don't buy anything Sony except for PlayStation. Like I won't never buy a Sony TV. They have these headsets that are like virtual reality. I swear to God, I'll never buy that virtual reality headset. I'll never buy their headphones. It's just like they look really cool. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know, the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. Sony just doesn't do it for me. But
And they used to be synonymous with quality. Like if you got a Sony Electronics, it was like you could count on it to be a good product.
exactly. Um, I it's just name brand. I also feel a PS5, they haven't really hit like the consumer yet. I feel like more people have a Switch, and I think what they're really lacking in right now is they don't have a handheld community like every other platform. Um, Microsoft, you could argue that they use an iPhone or an iPad as their quote unquote mobile device. They don't really need to make a new like Xbox mobile. Obviously, Nintendo, you can go either mobile or play at home. So they've really honed on that market, which I thought was really smart. Um, Sony's tried. They came out with a brand new um, at some con about a month ago. It's interesting. So basically, you have to get a PS5, and then there's this little controller deal. It's about 300 to 500 bucks. I don't know the exact amount, and you can play it. So let's say like you go on vacation in the Philippines, for example, and you want to continue your Star Wars game or whatever game it is. You play it on your handheld deal. You come home and it continues on as if you're playing on your PlayStation at home. It's kind of cool, but I don't know. It's I like Nintendo's version a little better because it acts as like your handheld deal, but then you could connect it to your TV, and you have that option versus like two different devices. Like people don't have that much money to just blow $1,000 to, it's different. But would you ever? I know, Brad, you're not a big gamer anymore, but when we talk about like video games and whatnot, does it make you like, oh man, maybe I would buy a Switch or a Sony
Of course.
PS5?
Yeah, I'll let you guys influence me all on stuff. All, oh, you should start collecting this. You should start doing this. And yeah, of course, I'll let you. Yeah, you guys always influence me. So, but here the problem is, it was so. It's I just like I got to the point like everybody does. You get to the point where it's like, oh gosh, I've been doing this for 4 hours straight.
I know.
It just
Takes up
it
a
just
lot of
can
time.
really absorb all your time. So I just had to kind of set it to the side. It wasn't for lack of enjoyment at all. It was
Yeah.
for, okay, it's time to do do some other things. You
Live
can really
live your life or go exercise
exactly
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, I hear you. I have a 12-hour flight to Korea and then a 4.5-hour flight to Manila. I don't know what the heck I'm gonna do on that plane ride except play my Switch. I mean, this is what I have to do.
No,
So,
you and your wife will talk about your future plans and dreams.
oh no, her
The
ass is
entire
gonna
the
be
entire time.
no, her ass is gonna be asleep. She said she's gonna drug herself and she's gonna pass out and drool on my shoulder, but it's fine. Um, my last stock I'm talking about today, and I hope you guys. I mean, this is kind of a fun segment for me to share, kind of like our hobbies, kind of going into financials,
Sure.
right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but Roblox, and this is an observation for anyone in the. I know we only have 5 people in the chat. Again, thank you all for coming through. But if the 5 people in the chat can take anything away from our shows, take this away. Roblox was around $25 a share when I was at home in 2019 or something like that, or maybe it was maybe a little bit more, or I don't know. It was very low though, and I had a friend, and no, she said she's doing it herself, not me. See, there she is. She's right there. Laugh out. Yep, sleep. We can watch K dramas. No, we don't need to do that. We don't need that. We're good. We're good. No, but it was my brother-in-law's brother-in-law's kid. So he tried to be like 12 or 11 years old, and he was playing this game called Roblox on his iPad. And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Roblox." I'm like, "What the heck's Roblox?" He's like, "I don't know. You go and you build stuff and like whatever." I'm like, "Jesus, this is the third time I've seen this damn game like in the past like 2 weeks." And I was like interviewing him about it. And I asked him about da da da. Pandemic hits. My buddy from work is like, he's like, "Bro, my son's made this like whole entire like city on Roblox." I'm like, "What the?" It's kind of like Minecraft, right? But it's Roblox. This stock went from like $35 a share to $150 a share, and my dumbass not forgot about it, and use kind of my own intuition to, whatever. I would have been up 300%, 400, 500%, right? So what I mean, what to take out of the show is like, just because some kid's doing something that you're totally not interested in, if enough people or kids or whatever, female, men, whatever, are into something that's really new, that's when you can get those $35 share prices to 150 to 200. You had a pandemic to help you out a little bit, but I didn't know a single financial about Roblox. So I just kind of think about that. Like when you're thinking about when you're thinking like, oh, what's the first stock I want to buy? If you got kids, freaking just observe them for an hour. See what shit or stuff they're looking on their iPad or your
You
iPhone.
you did the exact same thing with your niece with the makeup that
Exactly.
makeup company.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my lovely wife, she has a lot of relatives that span from 4 years old to 18, and there's like 11 of them, right? So I literally should probably just like talk to them. And I do sometimes like, hey, what are you into? Like, what's hot, And it's so easy for them to, and nowadays it's so easy for them to like get addicted to something because mom and dad don't want to have to deal with them. Here's an iPad, leave me the hell alone for 2 hours. Oh, what are they downloading? What are they into? Can I invest in that? I can't. Okay, what else are they into? Oh, I can. That's part of this company that I knew about from the other kid that I was, that my buddy's kid was playing a different game. Do a little more research into it. Oh, it's only $35 a share. 3 months later, I'm up 400, 500%. That's way better than your FOC, BS that, we have to deal with every week, right? But,
Right. Right.
but I don't know, just something to kind of think about and then like get your kids into it because they're going to get excited too. And then they're going to be the future Warren Buffett, who knows, but
Yeah, I
anyway.
should have taken advantage of that. So my oldest nephew's oldest daughter is 8. And I told her, I said, "Hey, next time you come to your dad's for a week, I'll take you to go eat ice cream. We'll go get some ice cream. She loves ice cream."
Mm-hmm.
So I took her to get ice cream and then took her to Books a Million to get a couple of books. And I really should have taken advantage of that, but his youngest daughter just turned 1 and she's a fiery redhead. She's like she's already got like such an attitude about her. But if they want her to chill out, there's this show called, have you ever heard of Miss Rachel?
It's on YouTube, right?
It's a YouTube show.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
is mesmerized by this lady. I don't know what kind of voodoo power she has over kids, but she is mesmerized by this lady.
It's insane.
And it's good, like, teaching them little things like how to clap and count and where's your head, and it's geared for her, but she just sits there and will just focus. So your kids have a lot to tell us if we'll stop long enough to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. And then who knows, that company is going to get acquired for 67 billion by Microsoft.
Right.
Maybe not a year later, but and the other thing with Roblox I forgot to touch on is Marcus was talking about last Thursday is that now those kids that were 12 years old playing Roblox are like, they're 17, 18 years old. Well, now they have Roblox that are geared towards teenagers or tweeners. So it just continues the cycle of consumption with that company. And it also shows me about Roblox being like, oh, we need to switch up because we were so geared towards children, we're going to lose that user base. We need to keep them for a few more years until we find out the next, opportunity. So anyway, so that's the end of my stock segment. Did you find that interesting?
Very much so. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that was really good.
Cool. Well, anyone in the chat, if you guys have any ideas of other stocks you want me to look into, let me know. I'm more than happy. I'm not the biggest expert in a lot of the stocks, but I try to do my best. So
yeah, if you're watching on the rewind, leave us a comment. We'll go back and check the comments. If you leave us a comment, hit us up and let us know. We're here to we want to present the information that you're interested in.
Yeah. So this is our kind of real estate spotlight. So this isn't necessarily Seattle, but this is about an hour north of Seattle. This little cottage home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's like, I think 1,300 square feet, 15 maybe. About an hour north of Seattle, went for 500,000 today. It just listed. So what you think about that house, Brad?
It's really cute. I mean,
Yeah.
and I like the size of the porch on it. It looks pretty substantial.
Marysville is kind of like how to explain Marysville. So Seattle's also like obviously like the metropolitan area of Washington. Marysville is like the first kind of I wouldn't call it a suburb. I'd call it like you can buy a lot of land out there and live in a pretty big like lot, but it is suburbia, quote unquote, but it's a little more country too. So it's pretty far though from Seattle proper.
Right. Yeah, this is not a
Wow.
$500,000 house. So I
Cool.
did this. I told you this was for you. I'll get to why and how.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it's 8 bedrooms, 7.5 baths, 15,000 square feet.
That's insane. Okay, continue. Sorry.
And then, so this is in, all right. If you guys remember our folks who have been with us from the beginning, I talked about when we were talking about the EVs and the South Carolina, the Scout Company had just bought, um, you know, are building a facility in Blythewood, South Carolina. That's where this house is located. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
north of Columbia by about, I mean, you're only talking about maybe 30 minutes north of Columbia proper, Blythewood, South Carolina. So built in 1995, 2 acres. It's got a full court basketball court in the backyard. It's got a pool with a pool house.
Oh,
I'm going to share this tab, if I may. Let's see. All right, present. I don't want to, it's not a slide. Let me try this. There we go. So I
very, very
wanted you to see photos. All right, so this is obviously got a circular driveway. Now this house needs to be updated, and this was bought by let's see. This was bought by not Open Door, but it was like one of those kind of this is owned by a company now. So they reached out to the seller reached out to them like, hey, we want to sell our house. They bought it. Now they're selling it.
Oh, okay.
So I'll when I get back to the other screen, I'll show you. I'll tell you exactly what it was. But so it needs to be updated somewhat. But just to
Oh,
give you an
yeah.
idea, like yeah, there's a lot of like really kind of gaudy, flashy things in here. But it's really, I mean, I mean, look at that. Like there's the pool, there's the pool house, and all that stuff. But you can like it could use
It's very
some
90s.
yeah, yeah. A lot of trophies, pool table,
Kind of
got a
does.
bar, another like a separate kitchen and bar. Um,
Oh,
interesting,
wow.
like
That's such a
yeah,
90s hot
I
tub
know,
or
yeah, right,
jacuzzi. Oh my goodness.
yeah.
That looks like
Step up on a
Scarface. It looks like
oh yeah,
Scarface to
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And I was like, who takes pictures of this? Is like what I look at when I'm
Uh-huh.
like, who doesn't make the bed in a $1.5 million? Like all this stuff has got
Yeah.
to be tight, you know.
Uh-huh.
But it's got a fireplace in the back, if you notice.
I
Um,
barely, but
got a sauna.
okay.
This is like a downstairs movie area with a bar. Got a gym. That's the pool,
That's
but it's
cool.
on two. Yeah, it's on 2 acres.
Jesus.
Um, that's nuts. So it needs some stuff, but there's the basketball court. Really interesting. But I saw that who is it that oh shoot, I don't see it on here. But it's like a company like Open Door,
Okay.
who let's see. Okay, I'm back now. Company like Open Door who purchases. So you notice the last thing I put on there was X-Man.
Yeah. Xavier
Okay,
McDaniels?
yes, that's his house.
Oh.
He so we're connecting the dots. We come full circle. Xavier McDaniel went to Eau Claire High School here in Columbia, South Carolina. He went on to play for Wichita State and then was drafted by
Your Seattle Supersonics.
there you
Yep.
go.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
played a lot of years. And I actually there was an agent who had this listed before this offer pad. That's who bought it.
Offer
Offer
pad.
pad. If you
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but they'll come in and like buy your house for you. And then obviously they didn't pay 1.5 million for it.
Yeah.
But their current listing has a whopping 7 photos on the listing. And I'm like, it's going to be tough to sell a 15,000 square foot house with 7 photos. But yeah, they came in and bought it. But yeah, that was the connection. I was like, I saw it was listed. I said, I got to save that for one of our shows because
Heck
that was
yeah.
a connection for us. So yeah, he was an intimidating player, to say the least. He was a bit of an enforcer.
He was the dude uh from from the San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors. What's his name? That's who he I didn't actually, when I was a kid, he had already either moved on or retired. I don't know, but I remember watching a game that he was not on the Sonics, but he was playing against the Sonics.
Was it with the
Um,
Knicks then? He might have been with
maybe. I can't remember, but he got a lot of boos after he came back, and but no, he was he wasn't because I was more the Gary Payton, Sean Kemp era, but I
Yeah.
didn't know Xavier McDaniels. I knew who's another one? Anyway, Luke or something Cage. Luke, not Luke Cage, something Cage. He was a vegetarian guy, which is really odd in the NBA. I forgot his first name, but oh yeah, Xavier McDaniel, man, the X-Man. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was
Great.
his. So I found an agent had this listing before, and when it ended, I pulled out all the stops to
Hmm.
get this listing.
Uh-huh.
Went in, found his number. I called it. It went to voicemail. I recognized his voice, so I knew I had the right phone number.
Sure.
And so I did a video and sent him a video like, "Hey, I know I can sell your house. I'd love to talk to you about." Like I was like pulling out all the stops trying to get the X Man's house as a listing. But yeah, I just thought that would be kind of cool for a connection. We're sunset to
Heck yeah.
south, but there's a little connection there.
Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, James, that looks James looks like a porn set.
It definitely does. um, and here's my credit tip of the day. Here's a quote: "Winning isn't everything; it's the only thing." Some Green Bay Packers coach came up with that one. If you guys know, type it in the chat. Or Brad, I'm sure you know Brad, but I was kind of joking. But um, so obviously, I deal a lot with mortgages, and a lot of loans I've been doing lately are HELOCs. And one of the nice advantages for HELOCs is the lower rate compared to like an actual credit card. Well, this is always what happens with me is either people want to consolidate because they've already done a project, or they just can't get enough money for the project they want to do. In some cases, I have clients call in and they're like, I just need like 5,000 for the small little like bathroom upgrade. And I go, you make quite a bit of money. You don't have a lot of debt. Why don't you just apply for a 0% interest rate for 6 to 12 months? That way, I'd love to do business with you, but it's just not going to make sense for you, like financially. Because I hate to charge you 5 grand, for such a small amount, when in reality you could just get a Home Depot or like Lowe's card paid off in 12 months. Now, not every client's like that, but it only makes sense to do a HELOC if you're doing a really big project. Not like even like a $10,000 upgrade sometimes may not even be worth it to do a HELOC. So just something kind of food for thought. And then like in general, like if a lot of times I'll get these offers like, oh, 12 to 18 months, 0% interest. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to ding my credit, but I have balances on my credit cards. Why would you do that? Get the ding on your credit. Worst case scenario, they say no, and then transfer as much debt that you have at 22 to 25% paid off in 18 months. And, you can close out that old credit card or leave it open, but it's almost a no-brainer, especially in credit tight environment that we're in right now. There's not a lot of offers that are doing, a lot of companies are doing that offer. So, just trying to figure out ways for people to save money that are currently like not in the best financial spot, or just don't have access to a ton of money, but necessarily not having to borrow a lot of money anyway. So, what do you think about? Would you agree with that, Brad?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think it's also really, uh, really nice on your part to suggest something that you don't get. It's all about providing value for your clients and um, people remembering, like, hey, you could have had me refinance and charge me a bunch of fees and stuff, but you gave me an alternative that was really more suited to my situation at the time. So I'm going to remember that when I, you know, need you when I buy a house or whatever. So that's
Yeah,
yeah, very, very nice of you to offer them a different solution.
of course. Yeah, thanks, man. Um, and now enough out of me. Let's get into the more you know. Some tidbits from Mister Brad. More specifically, though, Airbnb bust, if you will. But take it away.
Yeah, so this was when somebody had mentioned this. It might have been James. Somebody mentioned this a week or so ago um in one of our sessions. And so Ferg was like, "Hey, you feel like talking about this?" And I said, "Sure, let's do it." So again, if you've got any ideas and want to post them in the chat, we welcome that. If you're watching on the replay and want to leave us a comment and say, "Hey guys, I was curious about this," we're happy to help in that manner and focus on the things you want to know about. So, is a mass sell-off of Airbnb and rentals coming? That's the question. That's actually been in the headlines here recently. So, let's go to let's dig in here and see what kind of information we've got. All right, so short-term rental bust can be simplified into the dynamics of supply and demand. So, quickly, they're reporting growth. Well, they're not wrong. They haven't had less. People said they're what do they call hosts? They're called hosts. Um, hey, Michael, good to see you, buddy. Appreciate you stopping by. One of our regulars for
One of
sure.
our regulars, one of the
Yeah,
great people in the community. Yes, for sure.
absolutely. Um, it's not so much that they've had less bookings, it's that they're spread so thin now that
Mm,
it's you've got to you're competing with a lot more. So yeah, supply and demand is at play, and we've been talking about this from episode 1. It comes in, and it seems like it comes into play every week. So real estate is hyper local. Airbnb bust happens only in specific markets where there is an oversupply of listings. It does not encompass the entire short-term rental industry, which, as some fear, may result in an Airbnb collapse. So we'll dig in and kind of see. We're going to take a look at some, like, the top 15 or so areas where they are experiencing an oversupply of Airbnbs, and you may see some of those have to get put on the market. So let's check out the next slide. All
wow.
right, so revenue declines. It says by county, but if you just look at the metro state area, Pennsylvania is up there, Arizona is up there, Austin, Texas. Would probably have guessed that would be on the list. Phoenix, Arizona, for sure. Interestingly, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a huge tourist destination.
Huh.
Um, there are already tons of. You think about all the condos and all the beachfront properties and stuff and then all of a sudden Airbnb jumps in the game.
Mm,
People still want that in Myrtle Beach. I think people still want that concierge, like that kind of pampered experience of,
oh yeah.
you were staying in a condo and we pull up at the front door and they take our bags and we get to sit by the pool and then we get to go to and then they've got breakfast for us each morning, and that people still like that experience when they're on vacation. So to rent a house where you provide all that stuff
Mhm.
yourself can possibly feel like not a vacation,
Yeah.
Um, some of these others, San Antonio's on there, a couple of Florida locations, Gulfport, Mississippi. So that would be Gulf Coast uh, beach area.
Hmm.
Denver, Colorado. Phoenix is on there twice. Oh,
They're that
maybe it's a
bad, huh?
different county. Different
Different
county.
county. Okay.
Yep. Jacksonville, North Carolina, Seattle at number 18. So
So
they
that's Pierce County, which is actually so Seattle proper is in King County, which is like the
okay.
richest quote unquote county. It includes Bellevue and whatnot. But Pierce County is like um Tacoma, Gig Harbor, I believe, Federal Way. So it's kind of like if you're priced out of Seattle, and you're going south, Pierce County is the next one over, and that does kind of make sense to me because Pierce County is pretty far from like if you're going to Seattle, it's pretty far. But nonetheless, 40.6% drop. That's pretty big. It's
Yeah,
pretty big.
that's year over year. So we'll look at some of the issues with Airbnb and some of the struggles that so they're called hosts. If you own a house
Yeah.
and you rent it as an Airbnb, you're a host. So
Hmm.
let's check out the next slide. All right, so here are some of the problems that they face. So it's not heavily regulated. So a hotel, you're not going to have two Hilton properties side by side or right next to each other. It's regulated where you can put this stuff, and they put a fair amount into research on where a hotel needs to go. Airbnb, if you've got a house and you own it, you can be an Airbnb. So you might have 5 on your street and not know it. So seems like that's something that maybe they didn't anticipate it would be so popular and get to the point where, hey, maybe they need to start monitoring and not have it just like it's the Wild West right now. If you've
Sure.
got a house, you could Airbnb it. 65% more Airbnbs than homes for sale currently. And we'll look at a chart that shows that. So we've talked in the past, we're in a housing crunch, supply and demand crunch, and there's currently 65% more Airbnbs than homes for sale. So maybe, you had alluded to in a previous episode, maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if some of these houses got put back into the market. There is oversaturation in some markets. So in that list, like you notice, I mean, Phoenix had a couple of, 2 counties that had suffered downturns. So some of the fees, I was not aware of this, but Airbnb fees, they charge 3% to the host and 14% to the guest.
So what do
Now
you
the
mean by
guest,
that?
all right, so let's say if it's I almost included a slide with like a breakdown, but
Breakdown?
let's say you do $100. You're when you're on an Airbnb and you're looking, you say, okay, I want to go Friday through Sunday. So I've got 3 days. It's
Yeah.
$100 a day. Plus you've got the host is going to charge you $60 cleaning fee. So you're at $360 for your stay. Then you've got taxes. Then you've got 14% guest fee. So your number is different than what you're seeing there. But basically, Airbnb charges both the host and the guest for being the mediator of this transaction.
Hmm.
So 3% to the host, 14% to the guest. I didn't realize that. There are some companies who handle, hey, we'll keep it, that they've started managing Airbnbs for people. They're considered co-hosts. They
Okay.
could charge as much as 25% on top of the Airbnb fees. So you start coupling all these little things that are starting to add up, and then with good old supply and demand, and I can see where some people might be getting into a bit of a crunch. Like how are you going to stand out from the crowd when you look at your within a 5-mile radius, there's 20 or 30 or whatever, however many Airbnbs. There's only so many ways you can stand out from the crowd. I mean, you have to have
Sure.
something that they want, like, hey, this one's got a pool, so let's take the one with the pool, or this one's got a jacuzzi or whatever.
Mhm.
there you got to do something to stand out from the crowd, which would also require you to reinvest some of your profits into the property to make it more appealing to stand out from the crowd. So I think the next graph is actually it shows the yeah. So this is over the years. We're looking at the blue is listings for sale, and we go back to like 2016 to present, and then the yellow, of course, is Airbnbs from roughly the same time, and you've just seen that kind of steadily go up, and then of course listings steadily go down. So um, it's hyper local. Like I said, you're going to
Sure.
see it more in some areas. I don't know that you got to have something to offer. You know, you got to have a reason for, just because you can rent your house doesn't mean people want to live in, you want to stay in your city for a long weekend.
Yeah.
You have to have something that draws them. So Columbia, I was surprised to learn. We've got the University of South Carolina.
So many. Yeah.
We've got then there's probably 5 other smaller colleges or universities in the Columbia area. And then we've got an Army base. So Fort Jackson is here. Well, you get a guy who's just joined and finished boot camp, and his family from California wants to come to his graduation, which they're doing basically one a week. So there's a draw. So I had mentioned this before, but my cousin knows a guy who has a couple of Airbnbs, and he asked him, "Hey, how often is it filled?" And he said, "Well, pretty much like 20 days out of the month." I was like, "God, that's not too shabby for, let's just say it's $100 a day, when we now know there's some other fees that apply for hosts, but at $100 a day, you're talking about $2,000, $2,000 a month. So, at the very least, you got to be making, it's more than you would make on a rental.
Sure.
Something in the low to mid 200,000s, or you might even, there was one down the road from my house. The guy bought it for 120,000 and fixed it up and added a pool, and rented it out to, like, every weekend. If University of South Carolina was playing Florida, there were Florida tags in the driveway.
Yeah,
And
that makes sense.
it had a pool table in one room, had a swimming pool out back. So I'm like, yeah, I could see a couple families getting together and renting this place out, or guys trip. Hey, we want to hit every stadium in the SEC or whatever. Let's hit that up. So there's money to be made, but I don't think, as you had stated previously, I don't think it would be necessarily a bad thing to get some of these into the, back into the system, so to speak, and let's, non-rentals, and let's get some inventory that people can actually buy. But it is hyper local. So, your area may not be affected, or it might be affected more than most are. So it's not we were kind of talking backstage about headlines. How do we make more people want to see our podcast? And it's basically the same thing. I meant it was basically the same thing that any news article or magazine article or whatever, basically the same thing they do. They throw a headline out, the looming Airbnb bust. They make it, they try to make it appealing so that people will click on it. So yeah, that's, I don't think it's a broad thing. I think there's, maybe they did have a bit of an influx, but I don't think this is something we're going to see in every market. I think it's probably more for these bigger markets that were on that list. Some of those may see, less options, which And they might need to, it might be something that Airbnb needs to regulate moving forward. So yeah, it was an interesting topic to take a look at, and something I think, well, we could definitely use the inventory um, to help out. I thought this was kind of a cool quote, so I threw this on here. Work is doing it. Discipline is doing it every day. Diligence is doing it well every day.
It's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna kind of touch on what your presentation was. That was really good information that I had no idea. But it's obviously the numbers. The numbers are showing that. And this is just an assumption I'm making here. Is like, so if you got a HELOC, for example, because I'm always thinking about like financing, right? Because on the finance part, whatever. I think what will really hurt the ownership of Airbnbs, quote unquote, is that if you have only 3 to 4 or single digit rental dates, for your Airbnb that you bought at kind of the height of prices in 2022 using a HELOC at 4.5%, and now it's 8%, 8.25, or whatever. That may force you to divest your investment, perhaps, and that could lead to a loss, possibly. I personally, as a consumer, like, the only reason I've ever done an Airbnb is because we've had 5 or like 7 people on a trip, and it's like, does it make more sense to have 3 rooms, 2 people, 2 people per room, or are we close enough that we can share, a room together with a buddy, like a college buddy or like an old friend from high school? And is it that much significantly cheaper to rent out a house, and like we can barbecue and just kind of spend more time together? Where I think an Airbnb doesn't do well is like a 1-bedroom condo that is near the strip, because it's like, why don't you just sit on the strip? Vegas, sorry. I've also used the Airbnb where there's like no hotels like near. So like when I've been to LA and I've used an Airbnb there, and we were 3 blocks away from the water, that kind of thing. But
Well, you talk about, like you've mentioned, the win. Like, you go to Vegas, you want that experience. Like, you want that feeling of extravagance.
yeah,
Like that. Feel like you're somebody.
right.
Whether
That's
whether
why you stay on the strip, that's why
right.
whatever. And yeah, and a couple of times where I've like looked at Airbnb and kind of compare it with like a hotel or like a nice other kind of like deal, I'm like, I might as well stay at the hotel. Screw it. Like, their resort fees are cheaper than this like cleaning fee. Like, I remember one had like a cleaning fee of like $200, and the cost to stay there per night was the same as the hotel, like right down the street. I'm like, you're not doing it right, person.
Yeah.
Whoever's
And
doing
you
this.
got somebody bringing you fresh towels every morning and cleaning your room every single day if you want
Yeah,
them to. I
yeah,
mean, yeah, that's where I noticed when I was doing this research. I actually went to the Airbnb site and played around a little bit, and there was a tab that said that you could select to show your true total. So with the fees and everything, so you're not just looking at, oh, I'm staying 3 days, it's $100 a day plus a cleaning fee, so $360. No, it was closer to like $450, $430,
yeah.
somewhere
See,
around
it's not
there
worth it.
by the time they do all that. So then you're like, well, gosh, I could. You call and sweet talk the person at the desk of a hotel, and you
I
might get a
know.
better deal than that.
Yeah.
Just kill them with kindness, and hey, y'all got any specials going on now? You know,
And the other thing
whatever.
too is like, I've heard like horror stories about Airbnb where like, they show up and like, I heard one where like they they double booked the room, or like the 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 people that were the owners of the home, like, it was their primary home and wasn't an investment property, and so they like got the weekends mixed up. It wasn't that big a deal. They just had to clean up real quick and then leave. But like, they were like, where do we go for, this is probably a wash for them. Um, I went to homecoming at good old Washington State University one year, and
The
this wasn't a big
Cougars.
Cougars, yeah, good old Cougars. Um, this wasn't a big deal, but my buddy showed up at the door first, and they're like, did the owners of this house leave?" And there's pictures of like the family and stuff and whatever. Um, I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, because we found a little surprise in the toilet. I guess one of the kids like went number two and didn't flush the bowl.
Oh my
Again, it
god.
wasn't a big deal, but like she was embarrassed and like, it was kind of weird to stay at someone else's house. It was a nice house in Pullman, but um and again, there's 12 of us. We're all in our 30s, at the time, and we're all comfortable. It's like, it's we can, this person can make dinner one night, and this guy can make breakfast another day, and that was actually pretty cool, and where I could see like an Airbnb making sense. But
Well, it's a lot easier to carry the keg into the Airbnb than it is to carry it up the elevator to the
yeah, yeah,
hotel room. So,
yeah. One of the guys, actually, you would like this. One of the guys that was on that trip, one of his clients is Georgetown Brewery, which does brew the Bodhisattva and Johnny
oh man,
Utah beers, and that's when he brought like a couple. He had like two half racks of it, and we drank those. It's really hot. It's pretty hoppy, but yeah, it was kind of cool to be drinking those beers that night.
well,
So
you
yeah,
do still have my address, Ferd. So maybe when you
I'll
get
figure
back,
something out, man. I'll figure
we'll
something
do.
out.
I mean, I would much rather have one there with you and Pickles. But in the interim, perhaps we could. I'll send you some bubble wrap, and
Oh
we'll
yeah.
figure we'll figure out how to get a couple of samples over here to your boy in South Carolina.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm actually headed that way over. So the way that hops grow, they grow like a triangle, like on these sticks, and they grow around like a vine, and then they cut them down like to the studs or whatever you call it. But I think harvest is around like the beginning of October. But um, the guy that is the hops grower, he lives in my wife's hometown. So I'll see him a lot more often than now, and maybe who knows, we may get we went to this restaurant, um and it was they had their specialty was prime rib, smoked prime rib. And I mean, they were about this thick. It was like $30. You get mashed potatoes and all the fixins, and I never had a smoked prime rib before, but
Mm,
I mean, it was pretty. That was some farm boy food, that's for sure. It was pretty good.
that seems like a deal. That much food for $30. That
It
seems
was
like a
pretty.
good deal.
It was fun, man. We had a really good time when I hadn't seen him in years, so it was nice to meet up with him and catch up. So it was good stuff. But yeah,
That's cool. I
yeah.
met up with actually after inspections last week. Took my client. I said I told him I'd gone. There's this place, Iron City Brewing. I found out it originated in Pennsylvania, so it's a
That makes
very
sense.
small chain. It's not. There's one in like Greenville, South Carolina, so they're not like a mass like a McDonald's or something, or it's a much smaller chain. But with the amount of breweries that we've started getting in town here, like all these little microbrew places,
Yeah,
that opened up near the Firefly Stadium, which is, you're now our West Coast affiliate for the Columbia Fireflies with your koozie.
that's right.
Um, so it's right in front of the stadium, which was brilliant to put it. People go hang out there, then go to the game, and that kind of stuff. But I had the most interesting beer. I don't do a ton of IPAs
Me
because
either.
some can be heavy and bitter and
Hmm.
just kind of like weigh you down.
Yeah.
This one was like much lighter.
Okay.
It was an orange creamsicle milkshake IPA,
Huh.
and it was delicious. Like
Huh.
I'm like, I guess they had like lactose in it or a little bit of lactose in it or something, but it was like a really refreshing, not heavy, not bitter, but very refreshing, like summertime beer. So, yeah, that's Glad we can see. We talked about everything. We talked about wedding traditions. We talked about stocks. We talked about Airbnbs, and then we finish it up. Put a nice bow
Good
on it with
old
a little
good old
beer.
beer talk. Good old beer. Dude talk. Just kidding. Well, that is the end of our show. Again, next week will be the last show for a couple weeks. I'll be going on vacation. Thanks everyone for coming in today. And yeah, if you guys have any, I kind of put this in the chat, but any suggestions for next week's show, please write in the Discord. We've got a lot of activity in the Discord, but it's funny, like you have all this activity in the Discord, but no one's watching the live show. So I don't know. Hope we can get some of that discussion into the live stream. And anyway, any closing thoughts for us, Brad?
Well, maybe we'll stop answering those questions in the Discord and start answering them on the show. So in order to get the answer, you'll have to watch the show to get the answer. We're tweaking things a little bit, but
Yeah, definitely.
enjoy it. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for stopping in. And as always, we welcome your input. We welcome your suggestions, and tell people about us. All of our previous videos are loaded on the YouTube channel. So come back and check it out if you've missed any.
All right, Brad. Well, thanks so much for your dissertation today, and we'll see you all next week.